Anybody has any shoes to throw, please throw them now. I'm glad to hear that. Though being cultured is not necessarily a good thing. But anyway.
Will you talk afterwards, please? Now, prove that you are cultured.
About a week or 10 days ago, I was in Ranchi, where there was a People's Tribunal against Operation Green Hunt, which is the Indian state's war against the poorest people in this country. And at that tribunal, just as I was leaving, a journalist, a TV journalist, stuck a mic in my face and very aggressively said, "Madam, is Kashmir an integral part of India or not? Is Kashmir an integral part of India or not?" About 5 times. So I said, look, Kashmir has never been an integral part of India. However aggressively and however often you want to ask me that, even the Indian government has accepted in the UN that it's not an integral part of India. So why are we trying to change that narrative now? See, in 1947, we were told that India became a sovereign nation and a sovereign democracy. But if you look at what the Indian state did from midnight of 1947 onwards, that colonized country, that country that became a country because of the imagination of its colonizer. The British drew the map of India in 1899. So that country became a colonizing power the moment it became independent. And the Indian state has militarily intervened in Manipur, in Nagaland, in Mizoram. Someone's phone is ringing here. In Mizoram, in Kashmir, in Telangana, during the Naxalbari uprising, in Punjab, in Hyderabad, in Goa, in Junagadh. So often the Indian government, the Indian state, the Indian elite, they accuse the Naxalites of believing in protracted war. But actually you see a state, the Indian state, that has waged protracted war against its own people, or what it calls its own people, relentlessly since 1947. And when you look at who are those people that it has waged war against, the Nagas, the Mizos, the Manipuris, people in Assam, Hyderabad, Kashmir, Punjab, it's always a minority. The Muslims, the tribals, the Christians, the Dalits, the Adivasis, endless war by an upper caste Hindu state. This is what is the moral history of our country. Now, in 2007, at the time of the uprising in Kashmir against that whole acquisition of land for the Amarnath Yatra, I was in Srinagar. I was walking down the road and I met a young journalist, I think he's from Times of India, and he said to me, he couldn't believe that, he saw some Indian person walking alone on the road, and he said, "Can I have a quote? Can I have a quote?" So I said, "Yes, you have a pen, because I don't want to be misquoted." And I said, "Write down that India needs Azadi from Kashmir just as much as Kashmir needs Azadi from India." And when I said India, I did not mean the Indian state. I meant the Indian people. Because I think that the occupation of Kashmir, today there are 700,000 security personnel manning that valley of 12 million people. It is the most militarized zone in the world. And for us, the people of India, to tolerate that occupation is like allowing a kind of moral corrosion to drip into our bloodstream. So for me, it's an intolerable situation to say, to try and pretend that it isn't happening, even if the media blanks it out. All of us know what it, I mean, maybe all of us don't know, but any of us who have visited Kashmir know that Kashmiris cannot inhale and exhale without the breath going through the barrel of an AK-47. So many things have been done there. You know, every time there's an election and people come out to vote, the Indian government goes and says, well, why do you want a referendum? There was a vote, and the people have voted for India. Now, I actually think that we need to deepen our thinking a little bit, because I too am very proud of this meeting today. I think it's a historic meeting in some ways. It's a historic meeting taking place in the capital of this very hollow superpower. A superpower where 830 million people live on less than 20 rupees a day. Now, you know, sometimes it's very difficult to know from what place one stands on as formally a citizen of India. What can one say? You know, what is one allowed to say? Because when India was fighting for independence from British colonization, every argument that people now use to problematize the problems of Azadi in Kashmir was certainly used against Indians. Crudely put, the natives are not ready for freedom. You know, the natives are not ready for democracy. But every kind of complication was also true. I mean, the great debates between Ambedkar and Gandhi and Nehru, they were also real debates. And over these last 60 years, whatever the Indian state has done, people in this country have argued and debated and deepened the meaning of freedom. And we have also lost a lot of ground because we have come to a stage today where India, a country that once called itself non-aligned, that once held its head up in pride, has today totally lain down prostrated on the floor against, at the feet of the United States of America. So we are a slave nation today. Our economy is completely, however much the Sensex may be growing, the fact is the reason that the Indian police, the paramilitary, and soon perhaps the army will be deployed in the whole of central India is because it's an extractive colonial economy that is being foisted on us. But the reason that I said what we need to do is to deepen this conversation is because it's also very easy for us to continue to feel, to continue to pat ourselves on the backs as great fighters for resistance, or resistance fighters for anything, whether it's the Maoists in the forest or whether it's the stone pelters on the streets. But actually, we must understand that we are up against something very serious. And I'm afraid that the bows and arrows of the Adivasis and the stones in the hands of the young people are absolutely essential, but they are not the only thing. You know, they are not the only thing that is going to win us freedom. And for that we need to be tactical. We need to question ourselves. We need to make alliances, serious alliances. Because, you know, I often say that in 1986, when capitalism won its jihad against Soviet communism in the mountains of Afghanistan, the whole world changed. And India realigned itself in this unipolar world. And in that realignment, it did two things. It opened two locks. One was the lock of the Babri Masjid, and one was the lock of the Indian market. And it ushered in two kinds of totalitarianism: Hindu fascism, Hindutva fascism, and economic totalitarianism. And both these manufactured their own kinds of terrorism. So you have Islamist terrorists and the Maoist terrorists. And this process has made 80% of this country live on 20 rupees a day. But it has divided us all up, and we spend all our time fighting with each other. When in fact, there should be deep solidarity. There should be deep solidarity between the struggles in Manipur, the struggles in Nagaland, the struggle in Kashmir, the struggle in central India, and in all the poor, squatting, all the vendors, all the slum dwellers, and so on. But what is it that should link these struggles? You know what it is? It's the idea of justice. Because nothing can connect, there can be struggles which are not struggles for justice. You know, there are people's movements, like the VHP is a people's movement, but it's a struggle for fascism. It's a struggle for injustice. We don't align ourselves with that. So every movement, every person on the street, every slogan is not a slogan for justice. So when I was in Kashmir on the streets during the Amarnath Yatra time, and even today I haven't been to Kashmir recently, but I've seen, and my heart is filled with appreciation for the struggle that people are waging, the fight that young people are fighting. And I don't want them to be let down. I don't want them to be let down even by their own leaders. Because I want to believe that this fight is a fight for justice. Not a fight in which you pick and choose your justices, you know. We want justice, but it's okay if the other chap is squashed. That's not right. So I remember when I wrote in 2007, I said the one thing that broke my heart on the streets of Srinagar was when I heard people say, Nanga Bhuka Hindustan, Jaan se Pyara Pakistan. I said no, because the Nanga Bhuka Hindustan is with you. You know? And if you're fighting for a just society, then you must align yourselves with the powerless. You know, the people here today, the Indian people here today, are people who have spent their lives opposing the Indian state. You know, I have, as you may know, many of you, been associated for a long time with the struggle in the Narmada Valley against big dams. And I always say that I think so much about these two valleys, the Kashmir Valley and the Narmada Valley.